Today we'll be working in my workbook called Opening the Curtain into the Psalms, which covers Psalms 22 to 31. This is my second book in the book of Psalms. Looking at the table of contents, we are going to be doing verse 24, Psalm 24, the King of Glory and His Kingdom. And as I have mentioned in my other Psalm studies, that these titles didn't exist on the original Psalms, but New King James have included them, and it's certainly easier than just putting Psalm 22, 23, 24. So I've included them, but they didn't exist with the original Psalms. Anyway, Psalm 24. That's the right one. Yep. The King of Glory and His Kingdom, of David, a Psalm. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. For He founded it on the seas and established it on the waters. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in His holy place? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god. They will receive blessing from the Lord and vindication from God their Savior. Such is the generation of those who seek Him, who seek your face, God of Jacob. Selah. Lift up your heads, you gates. Be lifted up, you ancient doors. Let the King of Glory may come in. That the King of Glory may come in. Who is this King of Glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, you gates. Lift them up, you ancient doors. That the King of Glory may come in. That the King again. Who is he, this King of Glory? The Lord Almighty. He is the King of Glory. Selah. Like I have mentioned in many of the other Psalm studies, there is many or more different versions of commentary for the Psalms as there are Psalms. And that's both exciting and challenging for a Bible researcher to be able to get a definition on the Psalms. So I've selected a number of authors as well as looking historically. I've always been interested in what time these may have been written, and I actually have several commentators who actually are interested in that as well. So that's why I picked these commentators. This psalm is part of the first book of Psalms. There's 5 books of Psalms that were not mine, 5 books of Psalms, and this is in the first Psalm book, which is Psalms 1 through 41. The NIV Study Bible states that Psalm 24 is the last of a small group of Psalms, 15 to 24, grouped together because they form a structured, self-contained unit with a chiastic arrangement, which progresses from the question of who can enter God's presence to the arrival of God's King. This particular psalm deals with who may ascend the holy hill. According to Jamieson, Fausset, and Brown, Psalm 24 is classified as a didactic or wisdom psalm, dealing with good and bad men and praise for God's general attributes. According to James Vernon McGee, the psalm tells of the coming of the chief shepherd. Historically, since David doesn't specifically tell us when it was written, Bible scholars can disagree. However, both the Blue Letter Bible and Nelson Chronological Bible believe it was written when he was preparing for the temple to be built. It could tie specifically to when the Ark of the Covenant was moved from Shiloh to Jerusalem in 2 Samuel 6. Open the gates for the King of Glory to come in. Sounds really logical. The only heading that was given with the psalm was that it was a psalm of David. Although the word that translates as of could mean about and not by, this could mean that someone else wrote it about David rather than him writing it. But in this case, we're pretty sure that David wrote it. Verses 6 and 10 end with the word Selah. Although the exact meaning of the word is unknown, it is generally believed that Selah means either a musical pause or a literal pause in singing. You'll find when I get to that word, I do pause a moment or two, figuring, well, that's the only thing I can do there. This psalm divides into 3 sections. The first section is the earth belongs to God, which is verses 1 through 2. The second section is who can dwell with God, verses 3 through 6. And the last section is the gates open for the King of Glory, verses 7 through 10. The first section, the earth belongs to God, verses 1 through 2. David uses the poetic structure of synonymous parallelism, which is saying the same thing two different ways throughout the psalm. We see it twice just in this section. The earth and everything in it is also said how, the world and all who live in it. He founded it on the seas is also said what, and established it on the waters. Paul directly quotes verse 1 in 1 Corinthians below to defend a point. What point is Paul trying to make? 1 Corinthians 10, 25, 26. Eat anything sold in the meat market without raising questions of conscience, for the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. But God made everything, so it's still the Lord's, no matter if it was sacrificed to idols or not. Did the Lord make the earth on the water seas or beside the water? On the seas, on the water. This adds a little more depth on the scriptures in Genesis. Genesis 1, 9, 10. And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place and let dry land appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land and gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Second section, who can dwell with God, verses 3 through 6. Okay. Again, we have three examples of synonymous parallelism, which is saying the same thing two different ways. What's another way of saying, who can ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? What is another way of saying, who doesn't trust in an idol? Who or doesn't swear by a false god? What is another way of saying blessing from the Lord? See, vindication from God, their Savior. Verse 4 tells us who can ascend the mountain of the Lord. Who can? One who has clean hands and a pure heart, who doesn't trust in an idol or swear by a false god. Aside from being able to ascend the mountain of the Lord, what do they receive? They will receive blessing from the Lord. Psalm 15, shown below, asks and answers the same question as verse 3. In Psalm 15, circle all the attributes of a person who lives on God's holy mountain. The Lord who may dwell in your sacred tent, who may live on your holy mountain, the one whose walk is blameless. I don't know if I can do this. Maybe I can. Whose walk, okay. I can't do it, so you're going to have to do it yourself. Let me put this back into place. There you go. Huh. Anyway, the one whose walk is blameless, that's one. Who does what is righteous, that's two. Who speaks the truth from their heart, three. Whose tongue utters no slander, four. Who does no wrong to the neighbor, five. Casts no slur on others, six. Who despises a vile person but honors those who fear the Lord, 7. Who keeps an oath even when it hurts, 8. Who doesn't change their mind, 9. Who lends money to the poor without interest, 10. Who does not accept a bribe against the innocent, 11. Whoever does these things will never be shaken. Okay? Who really can ascend to the mountain of God using these parameters? Well, the only person that can cover all those is Jesus, but we're covered by his blood, so we can. However, if we Christian, and I'm hitting that here, however, we are Christian, does the righteousness of God, Jesus, cover us? This righteousness is given through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. Therefore, since the word vindication means God's act of clearing someone of blame, proving their righteousness, and defending them against false accusations or unjust treatment, David is actually being prophetic in verse 5 when he states we get vindication or clearing of sin from God, our Savior. This section ends with the word Selah, which means to a pause in the music. Section 3, the gates open for the King of Glory. In this section, David uses both synonymous parallelism and repetition as poetic structure. First, the synonymous parallelism. What is another phrase for you gates? Ancient doors. What is another phrase for strong and mighty? Mighty in battle. In this section of repeats, this is a section of repeats. You can almost hear the song. What verse repeats verse 7? Verse 9. What verse is similar to the first part of verse 8? Verse 10. How many times did David use the words King of Glory? 1 in 7, 2 in 8, 1 and 9, I mean, total of 3, and 2 and 10, so 5. How many times did David use the word mighty or a version of it? Mighty in 8, or mighty in, well, so 2 and 8. Almighty is 1 and 10. As stated in the comment section, it is believed that David wrote this for the arrival of the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. Who opened the gates? Who are the gatekeepers? 1 Chronicles 15, 3, 24, 28, 29a. David assembled all Israel in Jerusalem to bring up the Ark of the Lord to the place he had prepared for it. Shebaniah, Hoshaphat, Nathaniel, Amasai, Zechariah, Benaiah, and Eleazar, the priests, were to blow trumpets before the Ark of God. Obed-Edom and Jehiah were also to be doorkeepers for the ark. So all Israel brought up the ark of the covenant of the Lord with shouts, with the sounding of ram's horns and trumpets, and of cymbals, and the playing of lyres and harps. The ark of the covenant of the Lord was entering the city of David. In section 3, as the gates open for the King of Glory, verses 7 through 10. I did that. Okay, so I've done that one. What's the next one? Okay. But David is also a prophet. And note Revelation 3:20 below. How does what David say in this section prophesy about this? Revelation 3:20. Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I'll come in and eat with that person and they with me. Lift up your heads, you gates. Open your ancient doors. Let the King of Glory come in. Kind of the same thing. So what part of this psalm touches your heart the most? Well, aside from I can hear the song that I know in this, it's just such a positive blessing, the whole thing, that I just enjoy the whole thing. I guess hearing the song in it and the praise that I've always had with the song, I guess. As stated earlier, this psalm is directly quoted by Paul in 1 Corinthians 10:26. The Jews used Psalm 24 in several liturgical and communal contexts, most probably as the psalm of the day for the Sunday and when Torah is returned to the ark. Even though the Ark of the Covenant at present does not exist, they still symbolically put it in a temporary ark. It's also recited during high holy prayers such as the Rosh Hashanah and the special role in other prayers like the priestly blessing. There are several traditional hymns that are derived from the psalm, and you see the words there, and several contemporary songs from the psalm. So that's the end of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye now.